I dig through the news and weed out all the nonsense so you guys don't have to. 30 minutes or less. Why? Because anything longer than that's probably just BS, anyways. Today is June 1st, 2026, and it's Monday. The start to a start, eh? That's awesome. It is 16 degrees Celsius in southwestern Manitoba. That's 60.8 degrees Fahrenheit to you guys down in the States. And let's start off with some birthdays. Today in 1801, Bingham Young, founder of Salt Lake City's branch of the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, passed in 1877 at the age of 76. Also today in 1825, Confederate General John Hunt Morgan. He passed in 1864 at the age of 39 by Union troops. Wow, go figure, eh? Confederate general being killed by Union troops. Yeah, that's a short-lived life. 1961. Oligarch and mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin. Yeah, I totally forgot about this guy. Yevgeny Prigozhin. Yeah, the oligarch and mercenary, known for his Wagner group. You know, mercenaries hired to have wars in other countries, kind of separating yourself from your own country. He's pretty much fighting a lot of Putin's wars, without actually Russia having to be involved. But yeah, he was killed in 2003, supposedly by a missile strike hitting his private jet. And this all after him kind of calling out Putin and saying this war in Ukraine isn't working out very good, and just calling him out. And this is during a time where Putin was taking out a lot of his oligarchs. So Prigozhin, he was 62. He would have been 62 years old. Well, no, he would have been, what, 68 years old today. And today in 1957, Jeffrey Hawkins, inventor of the Palm Pilot, he is 69 years old today. And today in 1926, Marilyn Monroe, passing in 1962 at the age of 36, connected to that mob boss Sam Giancana. Yeah, Sam Giancana, and then hooked up with JFK as well. This is during that Cuban Missile Crisis kind of issue. And yeah, I don't think Sam liked JFK sleeping with his girl. I think that's kind of what led to her downfall and her accidental overdose. Yeah, right. I don't think that was an accidental overdose. And today in 1937, Morgan Freeman is 89. Morgan Freeman, Shawshank Redemption, and also played a long part with Brad Pitt in the movie Seven, where they talked about seven deadly sins. Pretty good movie, pretty gruesome. And today in 1946, Brian Cox, probably best known for his HBO drama series Succession. There's some other movies that he was in too. Wasn't he in like Basketball or The Ringer, something like that, with Johnny Knoxville from Jackass? I think that's Brian Cox. And today, Heidi Klum is 53. AMC, yeah, she was one of the judges on America's Got Talent. Uh, Oh, Alanis Morissette is 52 today, Canadian songwriter. One of her albums coming in at 1995 with 33 million copies, with an overall album sales, worldwide album sales of 75 million. Alanis Morissette, Canadian, American Canadian now, I guess. It's kind of like Tom Green. Is he American now, or is he Canadian because he came back? And then today, 1996, Tom Holland. He's 30 years old today. He was, what, in that Spider-Man's Homecoming movie? really don't even care. I stopped watching all those Marvel movies a long time ago. So it's June 1st today, you guys. And it's Monday. That's crazy. 16 degrees Celsius. That's 60.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's get into the news. 30 minutes or less. So, yeah, so Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin had quite the catastrophe and on Friday there. How's it going, Desert Outlaw? So, yeah, and Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin. Okay, this is a relatively new company. It's been around since 2000. And then on Friday, their Glen rocket exploded at Cape Canaveral. That's on the east coast of Florida, along the Atlantic coast there. So this was supposed to just be static testing that they were going to do right now, just testing some engines and their thrust. This wasn't supposed to be a full space launch. There has been a little bit of talk though that they should have went through with this test. Do they knew that there was a faulty valve or something that could have went wrong with one of these valves? But that's all speculation and conjecture right now. But the fallout behind this, there's probably a lot of people sitting there worried right now because they're investing their money into space programs, especially with SpaceX. So how is this going to affect everyone? And does Blue Origin, well, sorry, does SpaceX, not SpaceX, does Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin uh, insurance going to cover some of this? Like, yeah, okay, Cape Canaveral does have insurance for things like this, but Blue Origin should have some type of responsibility behind this too. And then what is this going to mean to like other space programs right now? It's really not going to mean much because this is just one of many space launching areas that they have at Cape Canaveral. And then you also have the Kennedy Space Center as well that is, not very far from Cape Canaveral, and they have multiple launching facilities as well. There's what is it, the 39A launching facility that is specifically used for SpaceX's heavy launching systems. So not going to slow that down by any means. Like just because this one launch facility is out of commission isn't going to slow anything down by any means. Oh, but that was pretty funny. A lot of people calling 911 thinking, they're being attacked. Some people even calling saying that it looked like a nuclear bomb going off. Trust me, if you heard that shockwave and you seen that cloud, it's not a nuclear bomb. You'd know right away. Do, do, do. And then, yeah, here, let's get some things separated here. When it comes to Cape Canaveral and the Kennedy Space Center, they are two totally separate entities of each other. Okay, one's run pretty much by the U.S. Space Force, and then the other one's more controlled by NASA. NASA's more interested in getting men to space, more like outer space technologies. What like they're doing more on the Cape Canaveral side is getting satellites and other devices that could be useful to them up into space as well. So yeah, so like I was talking, there's the one launch pad, the 39A, which is leased out to SpaceX for their Falcon Heavy 9 or Heavy rockets. And then you have the 39B platform that NASA uses for their space launch systems. And there's also four other facilities that are totally capable of doing this. There's the Vandenberg Space Force in California. There's a Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. There also is a facility in Alaska, but really, to tell you the truth, there's not much worth talking about that facility. Yes, you could classify that as being a sufficient. I wouldn't call it a sufficient place to be launching from. Just logistically, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, and then a lot of people are investing money into these space programs right now. And I think I said last week when like uh, BlackRock is starting to talk about how they're investing so much money into into SpaceX and into a lot of their different industries. But it could only take one of these bad accidents to happen to have everything come crashing to an end. And is this a smart investment when it comes to small time investors? Definitely not. Like it's volatile as it is. Look at what just happened with Bezos. Like this isn't gonna look good for him on paper, like, especially when it comes to stocks. There's gonna be a lot of people asking questions right now, and to just sit there and people being told to invest into SpaceX, I wouldn't. It just doesn't sound feasible. Yes, it's a good company to invest into, but like I said, just one accident like this to any of these other space programs could bring everything to a crashing halt. No pun intended. But yeah, it's just not good. Thanks, Ola. I'll tell you after I'm done the news. And over to Finland. This is kind of interesting. Finland just finished one of these granite mines, and it's to store about 6,500 tons of its own nuclear fuel waste. And this is, you'd think there'd be more of these in the world. No, this is like one of the first in the world, one of these facilities. And it's the way they have it designed in this granite mine and the way they're going to store it. So, but the thing is, Finland is only going to use this for their own product. And then once it's filled up, they're just going to seal it again, seal it up. There's already talks of them starting another one. This facility should start being fully active within the next couple months here. So we could see them starting to store nuclear waste there and them starting another project. France is also looking into this now that Finland's almost completed this project and should be able to start storing nuclear waste, like I said, within the next couple months here. Um, yeah, you're going to get backlash for this. And there's a lot of things coming up right now. There's a few companies that are looking into, reappropriating this nuclear waste. So if they are going to seal this stuff up, it should be sealed up in a way if they could go back and fix it, like, or make use out of it again. I don't think they should really take into consideration what they're going to store this waste in. Like, the company in Finland says they're going to use a form of clay in what is it, copper barrels, and I really don't see how that's going to store this stuff for the next 200,000 years, 100,000 years, whatever they say the shelf life is on this stuff is gonna be. But like it's gonna be more than 100,000 year shelf life, and if they're gonna store this stuff, they should store it at least in a proper way for sure. Oh, and this isn't good for truckers. And this isn't good for truckers here. Some bad news coming out of British Columbia, Canada. I'm sorry to tell, like, and this is bad for truckers all over Canada and the US. British Columbia is becoming the first province and gonna require dash cams for all commercial trucks. This bill was passed in legislature, and this is to make forward-facing cameras mandatory. And this is their way of improving safety and accountability when it comes to accidents in BC. And this is all after a series of bad accidents they've had on the highway. But what this is going to come into force, and right now the only thing that's holding this back is the province's lieutenant governor, Wendy Lesgard uh, Kotita. I can't remember how to say her last name, and I didn't write her name how I should say it. But anyways, it's in her hands right now. And then once she signs this, this is going to be crazy. Where's the timeline on this? So yeah, once she signs this, this will come into full force as of 6 months after she sees, as this sees Royal Assembly. And she is the final stage. She's the Royal Assembly. So this is going to come into effect. So think about this. they're thinking about just BC truck drivers and stuff, and they're how they're going to control BC truck drivers, and try and control how there's, a lot of truck drivers that are at fault, and a lot of people in vehicles at fault, and then try and restrict people from having false driver's license, especially when it comes to the trucking industry. This is that their kind of way of trying to get their way of this. But now all these other trucking companies, like all throughout Canada, there's a lot of trucking companies that deal with BC. So what they're saying now is every trucking company is going to have some form of electro or camera, forward facing camera. And not only that, it has to be high definition. It has to be night vision as well to have this. So all these trucking industries right now, even ones coming up from the United States, if they don't have these cameras, they could be implemented fines and tickets. And how are you supposed to justify that? Are you going to put out an all news bulletin to like Washington D.C., a lot of trucking companies in the, what is it, Northwest? Are you going to hand out notifications to the rest of Canada and then let everyone know, okay, yeah, if you're a trucking industry, you should probably put these cameras or you're going to receive stiff fines. And this could be happening within the next 6 months because, like I said, it's in this Wendy chick's hands now. So it's going to affect not just Canada, it's going to affect US trades as well and US companies. And what I just don't get is one province is trying to do this, and then they're, how are you going to tell everyone these rules? That's the thing. Yeah, you have 6 months to do it, but are you going to be able to tell every trucking company in the United States who deals with BC that? Are you going to have enough 6 months be enough time to tell every trucking company in Canada that? Or is it just going to be a money grab for these out of province trucking companies for you guys just to put fines on them because they don't have cameras or they didn't know better? So that this whole conspiracy going on here of what's going to happen with this. And I know there's a lot of truckers that are upset with this. There's a lot of truckers that are already doing this in the first place just to cover their own ass. And yeah, it totally makes sense. Like your liability, and a lot of people take advantage of semis, and they say a way of, oh, okay, here we can sue this company, let's create a wreck. And yeah, it's a good way to get rid of and figure out some of these like accidents instead of having to, my word versus their word. Video evidence is good, but the way they're implementing this is totally the wrong way. And they're going to get a lot of ticket money out of a lot of other companies, especially foreign and domestic. Crazy. And then some more Canadian news. 300 Canadian Pacific Kansas City signal and communication employees have gone on strike, being told on Sunday that this would be a 72-hour strike. Rail systems seem to be running as normal as they would be. It didn't really affect anything when it comes to rail traffic. But the thing is, if they still don't have any demands here, this 72-hour strike could last longer, and then it could develop into more union workers not wanting or not going to work and hitting the picket fields. So that could still get dragged out for a little bit. They had a 72-hour notice to do it, for a 72-hour strike, but we'll see. And then speaking of strikes, Canada Post workers voted 85% in favor of their new 5-year deal with a 65% increase, with a 3% increase in the first 2 years to their wages. So there we go. That's one thing done. We got answered. Seems 85%. I can't see this going back to the union. Maybe in another 3 years, or after the 2 years where they get that automatic 3%, they them go back to strike. But with a vote of 85%, there we go, answered. Congratulations, Canada Post, you finally got what you were asking for. And you can't really say that you didn't get everything you asked for. With a vote at 85% to agree with that, then obviously you got more than what you're asking for in the first place. Armenia. And there's some talk right now. Let's talk about Australia because yeah, I like to talk about other countries and stuff, but this is a little bit of what's happening in America and what's happening in Australia. But yeah, there's talk right now of Australia getting America's leftover nuclear submarines, which is very interesting. You know, there was a lot of big talk about Australia getting some new submarines, but because of this Arcosma deal that they have, technically they're not even allowed to own their own nuclear submarines. There was a deal that they were talking between the United States and Britain where they were going to get brand new nuclear submarines to from the United States, but they'd be controlled by the U.S. Navy seamen and then the British Navy seamen. There would be no Australians on this boat, on these submarines, which is kind of funny. So, yes, they'd get these subs, they would defend their waters, but they'd only be British seamen on there and American seamen on there. But now they're talking about, hey, you know, maybe we will give them some submarines. Here, let's give them our scraps here. We're already talking about upgrading our submarine class. And you know what? We have better submarines than this already that and better technology in some of the newer submarines. So let's give them our old Virginia class stuff. Just some of these scraps, which is kind of funny. This isn't set in stone. Like this whole controversy between what's happening with Australia, and by the sounds of it, Australia's already put in $500 billion on the table for this deal. Like they've already given it up. Like, so what are you getting? What are you getting? You already put the money on the table. And it's funny, it started off, I think, at like $380 billion, and now it's like over $500 billion. I think it's around $520 billion for this submarine deal. Well, you were getting new submarines, but then they weren't going to be controlled by your Navy. And then now you can get these submarines, then the bill hasn't changed, but you can have your own Navy control these submarines. Like, oh, I don't know. I just find this funny. This is just so comical. Yeah, some of the stuff that's going in Australia. But I can't watch Australian news. It just brings me down. It just absolutely brings me down. So yeah, 30 minutes or less. I'm here Monday to Friday, 4 to 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Yeah, where I dig through the news and weed out the nonsense so you guys don't have to. Yeah, 30 minutes or less. Yeah. I got some things that happened today in history I could use a filler here. And then that question. Duh. Oh, why do I make people uncomfortable? I used to. Armenia. Just got your stream. Bless your family, people. Armenia. That's pretty cool. I think my cousin was there last summer. It's funny. He said he was traveling the Eastern Europe. He's like, and just he literally went to a map and he's like, actually, no, what he did, he's like, where's the cheapest flight I can get to in Europe? And I think it was like Armenia and Kosovo. Kosovo, I think it was. It was really funny. So he flew there. Lots of layovers, but he said it was pretty cool. So yeah, with things that happened today in history, June 1st, today in 1543, Flemish physician Andres Vesalius publishes De Humanitate Collaboris Fabrica, which included 7 books describing human anatomy in great detail. So this is like the first real publication on like the skeletal network, how the nervous system looks like a real breakdown, like a dictionary for the human body, and it was a conclusion of 7 books. Um, but to tell you the truth, there is real no actual date of publication. I think it kind of just got handed around with specific physicians for a bit before it was published. So, yeah, some interesting history. Today in June 1st, 1676, the Battle of Åland. The Danish Dutch forces defeat the Swedish navy in the Baltic Sea. Yeah, I don't think the Swedish lost too many wars and battles. I think that was probably a real stepping stone for the Swedish people to realize, should beef up their defenses and kind of just mind their own business. And today in 1774, the Boston's Port Act comes into play, closing the port of Boston to punish all the people and the colonialists for the Boston Tea Party. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to look up how long they closed the ports for, but I don't think they closed the ports for very long. But back then, yeah, that would have. Don't let people not work, because if they aren't working, then you know what they're gonna do? They're just gonna protest and do things that just don't make any sense in the first place. They're gonna think too much. You give them a job, then they stop thinking too much. And today in 1998, European Central Bank is founded in Brussels. I didn't realize the European Central Bank was only founded in 1998. I thought it was like a fair bit older than that. I was thinking more like 1968. And today in 1980, CNN had their first transmission, their first broadcast of being CNN. And that was another thing. I thought CNN was a little bit older, but I guess when it comes to like news agencies, there's CNN, Fox News, a lot of other news agencies that have been like dissolved by this. But there's other ones. Oh, Time Warner. Time Warner is still around, which is really crazy. If you want to get into conspiracy theory stuff, look up Time Warner. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Even CNN has their own can of worms you could look up. And today in 1968, Simon and Garfunkel's Mrs. Robinson got the first ever rock and roll Grammy for album of the year. Yeah, for rock and roll album, like, and it Simon and Garfunkel, rock and roll. I don't know, is that kind of like 6'7", 6'7"? I don't know. Or is it because of the way I grew up and the definition of like rock and roll? I guess Elvis was rock and roll, right? So yeah, I guess because of my generation, my definition of rock and roll is probably a little bit off. And then today, June 1st, 2026, I started another book, fresh paged everything, and it's starting June 1st on a Monday. So good. And not only that, I killed another pen. So I'm starting not only with a fresh book, I'm starting with a fresh pen today. How far in did I get into my new pen? Right there. So yeah, I got like a third of the way through the page before I started, my pen died. But that's awesome. Oh, but I'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's show. Yeah, new Strip Down. I'm here Monday to Friday, 4 to 4:30 p.m. Central Time. 30 minutes or less. Why? Because anything longer than that's just BS anyways. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. And if not, you guys have a good week. It was a beautiful weekend. I can't complain. Everyone said it was too hot, and I was like, yeah, get over it. Get over it. Some of the nicest days we've had in a while. But you guys have a good one, and if you guys pop in, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.